Today we have a lot to unpack. And when I say a lot, we have a huge amount to unpack. Prime Minister Netanyahu has been to Washington. He's met with President Trump. The Houthis are on fire as usual, both literally and figuratively speaking. On top of that, the Iranians are playing negotiation games. They're coming, they're going, they will negotiate, they won't negotiate. We're going to find all of that out in the next couple minutes, or I should say, in the next couple dozen minutes. And hello, first of all, Nate from Sydney. We had another one there. Hello, Desiree from the Philippines, and welcome everyone who is joining us today for this live broadcast. So first, before we start and go any further, you're watching TBN Israel. We're going live from Jerusalem. We're here to unpack everything that's been happening in this part of the world. It's exciting to see how many people join us live. It's been an exciting experience to be with you guys live and to really be able to unpack and talk through everything that's happening in this region. And before we go any further, we're going to have to do what Tomer asks us every time to do.
Just before we start, give us a thumbs up or show us in the comments some attention
Give us
and
some love, guys.
yeah, for sure.
The hit words are like, share, and subscribe. And I'll ask you to go even one step further. If you're subscribing, there's a little bell. I'm looking at it right now on YouTube, and that bell makes sure that you get a ping every time we come out with a new video, and that makes sure you never miss another video coming from Jerusalem straight to you. So we're here, and I want to say this first before we get started. The reason we do these videos, the reason we're here on a daily basis, updating you, creating content, is because we want you to know everything that is happening in this part of the world. And we want you to hear it from a faith perspective that reads the Bible, that knows God's plan for this region, that cares about what is happening in this part of the world. So let's get to business.
Let's start with the headlines of today.
So let's get to business. There's been a lot that's been happening. First of all, let's start with the Iranians. The Iranians have been the hot potato, the hot topic, the really the main issue that's been happening for a while in this region. And let me break down what's been happening in the last couple weeks. I'll back up even a couple more months. In the past year, Iran has lost most of its ring of power proxies in this region. They came to this game, the game of October 7th, 2023, with a plan to have a ring of fire around Israel. They had Hamas, they had Hezbollah, they had the Houthis, they had Iranian IRGC forces, and several other sort of militias that were
Iraqi
related to them.
militias, yeah,
Iraqi and Syrian militias that were tied to them. And at this point in time, so we're about 16, 17 months into this to this war, at this point in time, they don't have a foothold with Hamas. They don't have a foothold with Hezbollah. They've lost much of their power and weapons caches with the Houthis. And on top of that, they themselves have been pressed back hard by American presence and Israeli offensive strikes in recent months. And that brings us to today. President Trump comes into office, and this is sort of where we're leading with. And he comes with a very, very, very powerful campaign. And the campaign says maximum pressure, maximum diplomatic pressure, maximum sanctions, maximum financial pressure, and to top it all off, military pressure.
not just military pressure.
Yeah,
It's a lot of pressure as a military pressure.
And I'll say this in a numbers and numerical sense. It's the most military presence that this region has seen since, I want to say, the global war on terrorism going back to the early 2000s. The U.S. have brought in several carrier groups into this region to park on the doorstep of the Iranian regime, and they're doing so because they want Iran to have a clear message: negotiate and dismantle your nuclear military program, or else sanctions and warfare, and both at the same time. So our headline today is that we know now that Iran has enriched uranium to 60%. It's nearing military, let's call it bomb quality uranium enrichment. And not only that, the U.S. has presented, well, my computer keeps popping up with notifications. The U.S. has presented President Trump has presented the Iranians with a very, very clear ultimatum: dismantle your nuclear and missile infrastructure. This is a direct quote, by the way, or face a massive military strike. I'll read that again. Trump must. So we have a quote that addresses Trump and says that Trump, and he, by the way, he did this. Trump must present Iran with a clear ultimatum: dismantle nuclear and missile infrastructure, or face a massive military strike.
That's Netanyahu said today.
Well, it's quoting someone else here in the
Yeah.
script, Tomo. It says AP chief. But again, so President Trump comes in and he says to the Iranians, it says, you're going to be met with.
Sorry, yeah. What Netanyahu said today in behalf of that, and I will find it. Keep going.
We'll find it in a second. So Trump comes into office and he says to the Iranians, guys, we've had enough of your shenanigans. What we want you to do is to dismantle a nuclear military program. And after you do that, we can discuss how you re-enter the, let's call it the group of countries we're willing to work together with. Iran, I need to remind you, has been at it in creating a nuclear military program for several decades now. They've tried to buy the technology. They've tried to import the know-how. They've tried to raise their own scientists, and the West has pushed back time and time again. But we're at a point now where every global source says, this is, by the way, Israeli intelligence and US intelligence, they all say at the same time that if we give the Iranians several more months, they will reach, let's call it, bomb quality uranium enrichment. And when they do that, it's just 2 more steps until they're able to deliver a nuclear bomb. And I'll jump to the end for you guys. Iran having a nuclear bomb is something we can't live with. That isn't a joke. We won't be alive if the Iranians have a nuclear bomb. Let's pause for a second. We're talking about Iran, everything that's been happening in this region, the Houthis, President Trump, and of course, Prime Minister Netanyahu meeting this week. But let's take a couple of quick questions. We have, wait, where did that go? Micah. We had, what was that, Kumara over there on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. The question is, it's a pity American modern Republicans are not into war anymore, and everyone else won't believe. I lost the question again. It's too long of a question. I see it on the side. I find it on the side. Not into war anymore, and everyone else won't believe there are nuke threats because of the Iraq debacle. Interesting statement. I'm going to try to explain that. Actually, I won't bother explaining it. You can go Google whether or not Iraq had nuclear warheads or chemical warheads. What I can tell you is people are usually slow to respond to threats of nuclear weaponry, such as Iran presents. And we usually wake up when it's too late and they already have a bomb. The problem is, Iran isn't Turkey, and Iran isn't China. Iran is a radicalized Islamic, revolutionary, and disrupting entity whose entire goal in life is to destroy, kill, and maim the Western way of thought, Judeo-Christian values, and everything the West holds dear. And them having a nuclear bomb is not something we can live with. That was a really good question. I want to say that I think this time around, both the US and Israel are clear on the fact that we know that they're going for a bomb. And we're clear on the fact that we're going to prevent them from getting to a bomb. We've done many, many things to get there, and we're going to continue trying.
I got you the Netanyahu quote from today about what he's saying.
So Netanyahu says today, about his meeting with Trump, he says, we agree that the Iranians will not have nuclear weapons. It can be done by agreement, but only if the agreement is a Libya-style agreement, where you come in, you blow up the facilities, you dismantle all the devices that created, and supervised by the Americans, executed by the Americans. That will be a good agreement. And according to the words of Prime Minister Netanyahu, the second option is that the Iranians will draw out the conversation, and then our option is military, emphasizes Netanyahu. Everyone knows that. We talked about this at length. That's a direct quote from Prime Minister Netanyahu.
We all remember how it's finished up to Gaddafi in Libya.
I love that you mentioned that. People might not know this, Toma. Gaddafi is a case in point for people around the world as to what not to do with nuclear bombs.
It's to give them away.
Never give away your bombs. If you don't know this, Muammar Gaddafi was the dictator for a lifetime of Libya, a country in northern Africa, and he was under the impression that he could sort of join the circle of legitimate countries, and he was told by the West that if he dismantled his nuclear program, he'd be able to join forces with the, let's call it the forces of freedom and forces of progression in the world. And what he didn't know is that they didn't really mean it. And when he gave up his bombs, he was now vulnerable to Western attacks. And the first sign of weakness that Gaddafi showed the West, internally, the first sort of tribal factions and tribal wars that he experienced as a dictator in his country, the Western forces they swooped down on the country of Libya. and they blew it to pieces. And there really is no polite way to describe this. I mean, they ran bombing missions over the country. They helped dismantle it, and the rest is history because Libya has never fully recovered from that. And every dictator around the world has taken note of that and said, I'm never giving up my nuclear bombs before I know that there's no chance that what happened to Gaddafi is happening to me. Because that is the thing any dictator is most scared of, is being chased in the streets by his own people. That's sort of the images that are, that are burnt in their mind forever. If you're joining us just right now, we've been running for several minutes now. We go live multiple times a week here on the TBN Israel channel. Pause this video for just a second, press the like, the share, and the subscribe button, and help the word about what we're doing here get out to the world. Help people around the world know the truth about what's happening here in Israel.
Before we move in the titles, Mati, there is another question on the screen.
Hold on, Tobin. On the screen right now, you can see a link to how to give. I'm sorry, Mike, I respond slowly to links on the screen. The link on the screen says www.tbnisrael.com/give. Today's show and today's live broadcasts are sponsored by, well, us. And actually, they're sponsored by you. If you help donate and keep this show running, then we'll be able to create more content in Israel. I have to tell you guys, in this past year plus of a war, the support that we've experienced and received, both in material support and in prayers and in meetings with people, has been absolutely overwhelming. Thank you. It's been a true blessing, both personally and collectively as a team. And I think there is a way, Tomo, you were telling me how to do this last time. There's a way to do something that's called a super like. What is it called? Super thank you.
Yeah.
On the bottom of the chat, I'm looking at it now, there's a little handshaking hand icon, and that's like you can make a small donation to the TBN Israel team platform to keep helping us create content. And to all of you who have already supported and all of you who have already contributed, thank you. We deeply appreciate it, and it makes a difference. Since we're sitting in a studio, I can say that it literally keeps the lights on. No pun intended. Anyway.
Okay, so back to the questions. One question, and we'll keep on going on the.
Are we going to pull that up on the screen?
Yeah.
Which one of them?
Oh, that one.
Okay, negotiations in Iran stalling to get the bomb. Joseph C. Yes, so Joseph C. asks a great question. Is Iran stalling in an attempt to get a bomb? Yes, they are stalling to get a bomb. They've been doing this for years. And I want to sort of break this down for a second. We in the West, I think if we haven't been tracking with everything that's been happening for so many years now, one might get the sense that the Iranians have outsmarted Western countries. And that's not true. That's actually not at all true. Israel, the US, the UK, and actually quite a few other countries, including Arab countries, have been on top of what the Iranians are developing to a degree that is probably better as far as intelligence goes than some of them have domestically. I'd say before October 7th, 2023, Israel probably knew more about what was happening in the Iranian nuclear plan than we knew about what was happening in the Gaza Strip. And that's not by any means a stretch of the imagination. The Iranians draw out time to negotiate. They are the masters of negotiation. In the Middle East, the Persians are known to be the master tradesmen and the master negotiators. And
also here in Jerusalem.
Also in Jerusalem, yes.
The best shop for clothes or to buy stuff is...
Yeah. In Israeli pop culture, absolutely. Like the Persians are known to be the traders, the salespeople, the master negotiators. And that's the case exactly with the Iranian government. They are people that know how to negotiate. They know how to draw out time. But I don't think Israel has been duped. And there's a lot of criticism I could pass on Prime Minister Netanyahu. But I'd say when it comes to the Iranian threat and the Iranian bomb threat, he has been spot on for decades now. Netanyahu has been the man, or the little, what's the expression? The little boy crying wolf.
He is the one that stand there with the bomb picture in the UN and said before 10 years, here, they're getting into a bomb. It's really dangerous.
Yeah, and he's been doing that for years on years on years on years. He goes to the UN General Assembly. He holds up pictures of how far the uranium enrichment has come in Iran. He exposed in press conferences all the nuclear archive that Israel stole from under the nose of the Iranian IRGC storage spaces in Tehran itself. I mean, the countless times where he's made this front and center to world attention, and it's been effective to a certain degree. The problem is the Iranians know how to play the long game, and they really have done so time and time again when it comes to the bomb, but they don't have one yet. And I think that's important to state. And not only do they not have a bomb, I want to remind people that the West has prolonged the process of them achieving one by many, many years. And I'll just name a handful of them. There have been malware attacks, the Stuxnet malware attack, for instance, where we dismantled a bunch of the electronics that was running their centrifuge facilities. There have been attacks on the grid, attacks on the devices, broken pieces of machinery that were sold to them without them understanding where it was coming from.
Scientists.
Yeah, countless scientists from the Iranian nuclear program that have disappeared, exploded, turned into a pink mist in mysterious circumstances, that have had their suitcases and equipment disappear from hotels in Europe. Look, Israeli intelligence and American intelligence and others have been on this for a really long time. That's not something new. And I want to remind people, there's three pieces to a nuclear bomb. There's enriched uranium, which you can buy off the shelf, as people allege that Israel did back in the day, or you can enrich it yourself, which is what Iran has been doing. There's the warhead that needs to be built, which is something Iran hasn't been able to do yet, which is to set off the chain reaction. There's a mechanism to how to do that, and then how to make it smaller so it fits on the top of a missile. And then there's the device that needs to carry that payload, and that's a ballistic missile or an intercontinental ballistic missile, an ICBM. And Iran has those, but they're not especially reliable, and they're not as plentiful as they want us to believe. And they're also really expensive. And they haven't connected that an entire chain of, let's call it, manufacturing and development yet. So they're not there yet.
By the way, about the negotiation with Iran, so I put you a news update about that. It's number 2.
So here's something that's in the news today. It says, for the first time, thank you, Toma. For the first time, Iran transfers advanced long-range missiles to pro-Iranian militias in Iraq, capable of striking European territories. Intelligence sources warn of increased instability. This bold Iranian step defies Trump's direct threats of retribution. So let me explain this. When we
want to talk to you, but let's put some missiles on the other side.
So we've been talking about this for a while now. The Iranians are interesting. President Trump comes into office and he says to the Iranians, look, we're going to negotiate directly, me and you. 2, you're going to come to the table and you're going to give up on your nuclear plan. 3, if you don't do that, look at everything I've positioned on the table in front of you. I have several strike groups that are located in the sea around you. I have a huge amount of aerial assets. I have missiles. I have electronic warfare. I have, the logistical chain of supply, all positioned. And if you don't come to the table with open hands and a willing heart, we're going to come down on you hard. And the Iranians are no suckers. What they do is they do 2 things. One, they start buying time. They disconnect themselves from their proxies and they say, oh, those Houthis over there, we joke, Thomas not actually Houthi, says, oh, those Houthis over there, we're not tied to them. We're just doing our thing. They're insubordinate. They don't listen to us. We really ask them, guys, please, and you can't see my left eye, but I'm winking, I'm winking hard here. Please don't bomb the Americans. It'd be terrible if you bomb the Americans.
So if we talked about that, there is exactly number 3, the title number 3 on that. We have also.
So, but just to finish the thought, so the Iranians, they disconnect themselves from the proxies, and they say, look, they're doing their thing, we're doing our thing, and for a while that works. But then they're also trying to diversify their portfolio. They have missiles stationed in Yemen, in Houthi-controlled Yemen, northern Yemen specifically. Now they're moving rockets also into, let's call it, Shia-controlled areas within Iraq. So now if something happens to go off, the Iranians have plausible deniability. Look, it wasn't us. I don't know. I don't know who this person is. I've never seen him in my life. I don't know how he could possibly get possession.
I just lost a couple of rockets yesterday. I don't know how they got there.
We just so happened to have misplaced several ballistic missiles and the scientists and military personnel that operate them. But this isn't us. And then what's interesting is Trump tries to bond together Houthi rebels and the Iranians. And he says, this is like 2 weeks ago at this point, he says to them, look, guys, any rocket that comes out of, I think he says that he uses the word bullet. Every bullet that comes out of Houthi-controlled Yemen is Iran firing it, and will be treated as such. We'll respond with with force that is never seen before against the Iranian people. And the Houthis are clever in the way they go about this. Hi, Sam. you want on the monitor for a second.
If you want to know how,
if you wanted to know, it's all good. If you want to know how Sam looks in an unflattering angle, you just got to find out. Anyway, we digress. So we were talking. By the way, this is T. I see it looks on camera a little darker than that. Where were we?
Oops. We are at number 4 and number 3 with the Houthis.
So the Iranians, one, they've said this, and this is truthful. They'll say about the Houthis, look, these people are not us. And it is, by the way, it is true. The Houthis really do their thing. They're not, they don't fully conform to what the Iranians want them to do. There isn't an on-off button for the Houthi rebels. And even within Houthi-controlled Yemen, there are different factions that don't necessarily all adhere to the same leadership. They might ideologically align, but they don't exactly follow the instructions. And the Houthis, while the White House has been saying, if you do this now, we're coming down on you hard. If you attack any more vessels traveling through the Red Sea, we're coming down on you hard. And at the same time, the Houthis defy the White House, and they say in a very brazen and a very bold way, they say, look, we don't want to negotiate with the Americans. We want to halt any kind of negotiations, and we reject your attempts at reaching an agreement with us. What the Trump administration has been trying to do, which is very wise in my opinion, I think in all our opinions, is they've been trying to cut out the middleman. They've sort of gotten tired of having to go through back channels, and the Qataris and the Egyptians. They've sent emissaries with, one, very clear and strong mandates, and secondly,
they talk to you.
Yeah, and they say, look, if you want to end whatever was about to happen, whatever violence is about to rain down on Iran, whatever violence is about to rain down on Houthi-controlled Yemen, if you want to end this, here's our guy. There's an emissary for the Houthis, there's an emissary for the Iranians, there's an emissary for Israel, for Hamas. Here's the guy. Talk to him now. And when you talk to him now, we want to understand, make sure we have an understanding. We don't want there to be miscommunication. We don't want there to be confusion. And the Houthis straight out defy them. They said, we're not interested. We don't want to negotiate. We don't want to have anything to do with you. And we're going to continue to disrupt this region. And that is very bold, incredibly, incredibly bold, incredibly brazen, incredibly rude, I would even say. And at the same time, it's quite clever on the Iranian side.
Yeah, it
What's
is.
next for us, Tomer?
Okay, so in Trump meeting, they were talking about Turkey. So what happened lately? Turkey start to sniff in our area and try to take over military bases in Syria. And the IDF immediately catch that and attack those bases. And it looked like it was something that Trump said, hey, I can fix the relationship between Erdogan to Netanyahu, and I will just call Erdogan.
And he did.
And he did. And he tell him congratulations. That's the funniest story
We've been doing content creation for a really long time now. And I love the character of President Trump. Everyone says, oh, you can't do this. You must go through whatever, you must go through these diplomatic channels to get to this leader, and you have to do this process to do this and that. And he'll just openly say, well, I don't think I agree with you.
Yeah.
And let's find out if you're right or wrong. And let's find out now, not in 10 years. Let's find out right now. Sometimes it plays out amazingly. The U.S. moved under Trump's previous presidency. They moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. Every president before Trump, we're going back over 30 years.
Said it's impossible to imagine to move the embassy because it's gonna
start a world war.
Yeah.
Every State Department head said to every U.S. president before Trump, he said, if you dare move the embassy to Jerusalem, all hell is going to break loose. There'll be a war in the Middle East. We'll lose our allies, etc.
You remember what he said?
Yeah.
When he announced that I just got a great deal, so I went for it.
You know what deal he's talking about?
Yeah, the building, the old hotel there, right? Something like that.
Yeah. So but it's twofold, because and this is what bureaucrats like to do to presidents or prime ministers. They say, oh, you can do it, but it's going to cost $800 million. And now it becomes expensive, and it becomes long, and you have to go through whole like procurement process.
And
So what they did is, we heard this from then Ambassador Friedman directly, where they were just like, they were
he was here.
Yeah, he was here, I think, right underneath us in the studio, saying, look, it's nice, but it's not going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars. One, we've already earmarked the land and Israel's giving it to us for free. Two, all it's going to cost, I think it was like $2 million, something ridiculous. All it's going to cost to move the embassy to Jerusalem is we need to retrofit like the what was it, consulate's housing in Jerusalem. It's downtown, and we need to change the sign in the front of one of the consulates in Jerusalem, and that's it. And it was like they did it almost overnight. And when they did that, everyone was expecting World War to break out. I mean, it was a violent day, mostly in the Gaza Strip, but again, in retrospect, you find out that that's the least of the evil that came out of there. And it moves. And several other embassies follow suit after then. And Trump's done many other things. He's negotiated directly with North Korea. Yeah, he's negotiated directly now. He's tried with the Iranians.
He told to North Korea, I have a bigger
bigger red button. And he's really good at calling out the bluff to world leaders that, that think they're tough. And right now, Turkey is this really weird creature that we're dealing with in this part of the world.
Turkey is important.
Yeah, they're super important. They're super powerful. They've filled in the power vacuum that exists in Syria, and they've done so aggressively, and they've done so quickly. The Russians have semi-evacuated some of their occupied territory there. Syria's taken over to a certain degree, and then something really interesting happens. Turkey, it goes between, it's almost like bipolar in its foreign policy. It goes between fully disrupting this region, threatening to have jets, fly.
They want the F-35.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. They want to fly missions on the border with Israel.
Yeah.
They want to disrupt Europe with, refugees and stuff like that. And then the next day, we find out that in back channels, Israel and Turkey are negotiating directly over a deal that's going to sort of reach a status quo agreement between us and them in this entire region. They make clear their intentions towards the American government and Europe that have to do with trade, and a deal that was frozen previously that has to do with purchase of F-35 fighter jets from the US. Anyway, and you look at all of this, it's sort of the pieces fall into place and they suddenly make sense, where President Trump and the Turks in this case were able to really bring stability to a relationship that was highly volatile for a while. Let's pause for a second. If you're with us, we've been running for a while. I don't know how long, but we've been
half an hour.
Half an hour, let's say. Take a second, guys, and press the like, the share, and the subscribe button. We have right now with us around 4,000 people that are watching live. It's so fun to be with you guys live. Let's take a couple minutes to answer some questions from the people that are watching. And if you can, when you're dropping a question, make sure to note where you're coming from and what you'd like to talk about next.
We have a question.
We do have a question. Why does Israel not support Iranian protesters by May? Well, who says we're not supporting Iranian protesters?
Well, who knows what the Mossad doing over there?
Well, I think we've had a hint of it.
Let's see more questions.
No, I mean, let's just elaborate on that. We know this as a fact, that Israel and the US have been working with the Iranian opposition. And one might imagine that there's been some kind of cooperation on the ground with protesters. We don't know to what degree, and we probably won't know in the foreseeable future, but it's interesting.
Tony asking a question.
Tony's asking, there have been 3 earthquakes in Iran with no aftershock. Nuke test? Probably not. Thank you for asking that question. So just to explain, since like the 70s, countries no longer do nuclear experiments above ground because of the nuclear fallout, because of the radiation that sort of travels in the clouds and the atmosphere. It's a huge problem. So what is usually done is nuclear tests are done underground, and you can detect them in several ways. One of them is with seismic sensors, similar to earthquakes. But there's one more thing that happens when you have an earthquake, is an earthquake and a nuclear test are very different in one thing, in the type of energy that is released. And nuclear tests release several other bursts of energy in different parts of the spectrum. I don't really know to explain this fully, that can be detected by satellites. So satellites that are, and again, this is going sort of into like spy tech, The US and I think many other countries, Israel included, have satellites that are scanning specifically the areas in Iran we would suspect this would happen. And we have the way to detect different wavelengths in both, well, it's all light, but be it infrared possibly, radio frequencies, electrical pulses, in many different ways that can give a better picture of what's actually happening. So I think it's not a nuclear bomb, and I think we would know if it was by now.
Because of the news I just pulled you in the script. So the earthquake happened next to a nuclear facility in Iran. So that's why everybody talking about it.
Yeah, and the Iranians, of course, are quick to say, don't worry, our nuclear facilities continue to function. I don't think that was our concern. But thanks for clarifying. The big question I think to be asked here is, were the Iranians able to reach a bomb without anyone else knowing? And I think this is a moment to go back to July 2024. U.S. intelligence releases a report. We've talked about this several times recently. And it says something deeply fascinating. I think news agencies, ourselves included, only picked up on this months ago, something like that, where the U.S. essentially says, look, it seems like the Iranians are scaling back their nuclear enrichment plans. This is almost a year ago now. This, let's say 8-9 months ago, where there's several reports. So this was already happening in the beginning of 2024 if it was picked up on in the middle of 24. And what it indicates is that possibly the Iranians have been scaling back some of their military operations that relate to nuclear development. And when they're doing that, they're not doing it because they've given up on the bomb. They're doing that because they want to negotiate out of the nuclear bomb. And let's take a peek for a second into the Iranian mindset. The reason the Iranians want a bomb is because a nuclear bomb is power. A nuclear bomb is influence. A nuclear bomb is a don't mess with me card that you can pull out in any kind of skirmish that you have with your neighbors. And all you need to do is look at North Korea, an impoverished country led by a maniacal dictator, second generation already, that has starved its people, that has tortured, kidnapped, executed its people, that has exported its soldiers to fight in Ukraine, that sells its citizens as sex slaves in China, allegedly, and wood choppers in Siberia for the Russians. It's crazy things. And yet that government is still there. And the reason it's still there is because they have a nuclear bomb, is because the nuclear bomb is enough of a deterrent for other countries not to mess with. Tomo, what do you say? We take another question or continue?
Yeah, there is a question about the Gaza Strip, and if you're interested.
Let's talk about Gaza.
So it's coming up.
Is it true that there are still open tunnels from Egypt which are being used by Hamas?
For Rafiq. So
through Rafiq?
Yeah, they just said today that only 20% of the tunnels in Gaza being destroyed by the IDF. What means that we got only 20% in a year and a half. So there is, and Katz, the
Minister of Defense,
just said that there is still just now running tunnels for Rafiq and the IDF. In what's going on now, and we're going to talk about it in the podcast, you and Yair today. It will be about Gaza and what left to do to eliminate every threat of terror. So about it, yes, there is.
Rafah is interesting. Rafah has been a point of contention for a really long time, both, by the way, within Israeli policymakers and also as we negotiate with the world over where our presence is going to be in the Gaza Strip. To remind people, when this war breaks out, Israel sort of makes it to the line of Rafah. Rafah, just if you imagine, the Gaza Strip is this, actually we have a map pulled up, can indicate. Sam, were we able to show my screen? Okay, here we are in Jerusalem. Thank you, Google Maps.
Here's the Gaza Strip. Here is the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
I will remember in 2009 when I got first to the Gaza Strip, and they said, okay, we're getting in. And we got on the vehicles and we drove 10 minutes and we were in the Gaza Strip. And I was like, that's it?
Yeah.
That's it? And you were in a whole different world.
It is a whole different world, yeah. And it's crazy. I remember, I'm getting sidetracked. I'll go back to the question. We're talking about Rafah. This is Rafah, down over here. This is the Rafah I'm showing you on the map. And Rafah is on the southernmost part of the Gaza Strip. And it connects the Gaza Strip into the Sinai Peninsula that is controlled by Egypt. And when we get to Rafah, we find and we knew there were tunnels, but we find an intense network. Are we able to show the map? We are showing it?
Yeah.
An intense network of tunnels that cross over between Rafah, between Egyptian Sinai and into the Gaza Strip. Some of them are big enough to drive trucks through. I mean, that's how big they are. Dozens and dozens of tunnels. The IDF ruined many of them, but many of them continue. I want to say this for understanding.
600, and there is still functioning one.
The extent of the tunnels indicates beyond any discussion or any doubt that someone high up in the Egyptian government was involved in this, and probably still is. The money machine that was those tunnels is insane. It is I mean, it was literally the economy of several million people, or I should say the illegal economy of several million people. The guns, the munitions, the weaponry that was needed, the drones, the electronics, it's all smuggled through here time and time again. And Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu and Minister of Defense Gallant back in the day, very, very, very strongly say, we're holding on to this. We're holding on to the Rafah sort of corridor because we don't want that going back to happening. We don't want to see trucks full of munitions going back into the Gaza Strip. Anyway, so yes, we probably still have active tunnels. I don't think there's a question about it. And I don't think, if you have some spare time, Google or go on YouTube and Google history of the Gaza Strip or
Maybe we need to do a video about it.
Yeah,
because the history is long and complex, and we need to simplify that.
I've watched several documentaries on this topic, and they are. You realize there's no being done with the tunnels in the Gaza Strip. That's not happening anytime. The way the soil and the rock formations that are built, it's so easy to dig tunnels there. You think in Lebanon, Tomil and I actually we're in Hezbollah tunnels deep in Lebanon. And it was like intense. It was intense also because it was basalt rock. Basalt is a
hard
magma formed rock. So it's like a deep black, very hard.
That was out of a movie. We got to a graveyard, and the IDF just opened the grave, and we got into the grave and started to walk like in a horror movie or like scary movie, and we got down the stairs and we start to walk in this tunnel and walking and walking and walking and walking and walking and sweating.
And underneath the ground, Hezbollah had built an underground city. By the way, they built it less than a kilometer away, so whatever that is in freedom units, away from a UN outpost. And the UN outpost was just looking at that exact site where they had been building a tunnel. And they said, oh, we didn't know. Again, these people were digging a tunnel that was 2 kilometers long almost in hard rock that requires explosives and heavy machinery to blast through. The Gaza Strip is an entirely different story. You can dig, I don't remember what the number is, but it's like a skilled laborer with tools can dig like several meters of tunnel.
Not mechanic tools, they're using
with hand tools.
Shovel and buckets.
It's a soft sand-based rock where essentially a skilled laborer can dig several meters, I think it was several meters a day of tunnel in the Gaza Strip. And when you run the numbers, it's impossible to get all of them. The only way to really do this is to maintain a presence in the Rafah crossing, or the Rafah corridor, and to work hand in hand with the Egyptian government to prevent them from cooperating actively with what's happening there. And by the way, I'm not saying that the president of Egypt is doing it, but maybe someone very high up in the army, possibly the head of the army, possibly someone who's a number 2 or 3 in their army. And we've heard rumors about this time and time again. Okay, next point.
Before the next point, last question about Egypt, and we'll go back to Iran and the US.
So Jill Stewart asks, thank you, Jill. Do you think Egypt is extremely concerned about Israel and the United States attacking Iran? If so, why is that?
Good question.
Yes. Okay, let's go back to our map.
Thank you, Mati.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that really requires
show us all our neighborhood.
Yeah, so here we are in a neighborhood. And let's zoom out. Sam, what are we seeing? Are we seeing my mouse or the pen?
Screen and
the mouse? Okay. So this is Egypt, this thing over here. This is all Egypt. And over here, there's a little canal called the Suez Canal. This thing over here, this like pizza slice, this is the Sinai Peninsula that Israel had conquered actually twice
And gave it back.
and gave it back to Egypt. This is the tiny country of Israel. Iran is all the way over here, and the Houthis are here, mostly in northern Yemen. And then all of this area funnels through the Bab el-Mandab Straits. The Bab el-Mandab Straits, you have to really zoom in to get this, is the sea bridge between Yemen and Africa. And when ships go through this area, they're very vulnerable to pirate attacks, really vulnerable to pirate attacks, which is something that we were dealing with even before Yemen was an issue off the coast of Somalia. And through this narrow corridor, the Bab el-Mandab Straits, and through the Red Sea, and then through this tiny, tiny canal called the Suez Canal, we don't know the exact number, but somewhere between 20 to 30% of global dry goods travel through this on the back of a ship. And run that number through your head for just a second. If the US and Israel attack Iran over here, Iran presses the button on all our IRGC forces.
Yeah, they said it.
And again, this is the IRGC is funded somewhere between 30 to 40 billion dollars a year, and everyone that wants to travel out of this part of the Arabian Gulf or the Persian Gulf, they have to go through the Hormuz Straits. The Hormuz Straits are over here, traveling by Iran. And guess who's their neighbor? All the big oil manufacturers of the Arab world. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Oman,
and
country after country, many small countries that make a huge amount of the global oil and a huge amount of the global oil that travels by sea.
Here
And
is Qatar.
That's a key issue. And when they travel in this area, and Iran says, we're turning off your travel through this area, no more oil comes out of this area. Then they start sending the drones and the missiles from Iran and, let's zoom out, from Yemen into Saudi, and oil refineries start blowing up here, and ships start sinking full of oil over here, and no one will travel through this because the Houthis that are up in northern Yemen, they start blowing up everyone who goes through this passage over here, Bab el-Mandab Straits again. So when you understand the geography of this, now you look at Egypt. To get to Egypt and to the Suez Canal, you have to go all the way through the Bab el-Mandab Straits, all the way up the Red Sea, and then you get to the Suez Canal. And if Yemen has gone ballistic, and if Iran has gone nuclear, pun intended, by the way, if Iran's gone nuclear, then no one is traveling this way. And dry goods around the world go up in price. Oil prices shoot through the sky. Futures trade goes crazy. Stock markets around the world start collapsing. And Egypt, that is a country that is reliant on two main revenue sources. What are their two main revenue sources? One is the Suez Canal, and the second one is tourism. They lose those two sources of revenue completely, the moment that war breaks out. And they start losing and burning through their foreign cash reserves. And when they do that, they're in trouble, and a whole lot of trouble. And they're terrified of that option materializing. And there is a true option that will happen. They've already been, on the, let's call it the business end of a really unpleasant stick that's been hurting them time and time again. And they don't want to see that happening again. So their interest now, you start understanding that. You start understanding that they don't want, the Egyptians don't want, I like that shot, Sam. The Egyptians don't want any of that because they're screwed. When Yemen goes ballistic and when Iran goes ballistic, they are suffering deeply. And when they suffer, the Egyptians suffer, Israel suffers, and now we need to zoom out just to understand the global implication. When you want to run through the Suez Canal, everyone who's coming from China on a ship, from India on a ship, from Pakistan on a ship, from the Philippines, from Indonesia, it's like all this area ends up funneling through here, through this area, to get to Europe. And Europe too is affected by that. And North Africa is affected by that. And even Scandinavia is affected by that. And so you need to understand that the effect on global trade is immense. It's painful, it's expensive to a great degree. back to the topic. Do we have time for another question, or do we start
No,
wrapping up?
let's move on to back to U.S. and direct talks that
Okay.
we're gonna have on Saturday.
Thank you for Toma keeping us focused. So, as everything's been escalating in this region and things are heating up even more, U.S. administration, led by President Trump, is trying to do something very different than business as usual and diplomacy. And what they're trying to do is talk directly to other people. And President Trump is incredible in doing this. He goes to the camera or to Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, and he looks at it and he says, "Hey, you," and he names a leader on the other side. One, I want to talk directly to you. Two, if you don't play nice, we're going to war. And it's been incredibly effective. He says to the Iranian people, "I want to talk directly. We don't want to go through middlemen. We don't want to be playing these games of this party and that party. Just talk to us and let's reach an agreement." And by doing that, he eliminates two things that the Iranians have playing for them. The first one is time. Dictatorships always have more time on their hands than democracies do. President Trump knows that he's on a clock. He's on a clock because democracies run out of power quickly. And when the US president hits midterm elections, I mean, he's already halfway through his term. So he doesn't want to be there. He wants to be done and, good and done with an agreement with the Iranians, and good and done with an agreement with the entire region, Hamas, Hezbollah, Syria, Iran, and the Houthis before this year is over. And I think he's going to get there. He's pushing really, really hard to get to exactly that moment. Okay.
What about the tariffs?
What about the tariffs?
They were talking about the
I don't
tariffs.
know. What do you think, Tomer?
I think that after the U.S. yesterday said that Israel had the right approach to it, and they came before anyone and said, "Okay, let's fix that. How we can fix that?" That was a great example for the rest of U.S. allies.
Yeah,
as they said.
I mean, I think there are two things playing here. One, I don't think the U.S. administration knew how dramatic the effect would be on stock markets when they floated this plan. They say we're imposing tariffs on everyone. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be painful. We're balancing sort of our trade deficit. And when they do that, global markets start. I mean, it was dramatic. We had a crazy weekend when it comes to stock.
20%.
It was double-digit percentages in markets across the globe, not limited to certain countries. Prime Minister Netanyahu travels quickly to Washington. He meets with President Trump. One of the two items they discuss is the tariffs that the U.S. is going to impose, and they're not removed, but we have these like vague statements made by the U.S. and by Israel saying it looks like we're going to work this out for the most part, and Israel will balance the trade deficit that the U.S. carries. We're going to be buying more weapons from the U.S. We're going to be buying more goods from the U.S. Don't worry.
And up the tariff that we put on U.S. stuff into Israel, what means that we're going to see more American cars over here.
More American electric cars.
Yeah.
Which means my next car is an American electric SUV, probably.
Yeah, apparently.
Or electric SUV, electric motorcycle.
I think that's the war between the electric cars that coming from China right now and the electric cars coming from the U.S.
Yeah. I find it freakish how fast global trade and global economies can move. It's amazing. All it takes is well, he is the leader of the free world, but all it takes is one strong statement from President Trump to really change everything that happens here. I want to end on a high note. Do we have time for another question? I think we're running out of time.
So let's
start wrapping this up. Let's do one last question, and then I'm going to try to pull this to a positive place.
Before the last question, please like, subscribe, and
share.
That's super important.
Thank you, Tomo, for keeping us on track. Lovely graphic.
Yeah. And if you want to support us, and this is super important to support the truth and what's happening in Israel, go to www.tbnisrael.com/give, and whatever you can give us or supporting us will go for us spreading the truth about what's happening in Israel.
Yes. Okay, so, we have time for one last question. Let's see it. The problem is I'm looking on YouTube instead of on our live feed. That's why I'm delayed. Yeah, that's what takes me time. Home Awareness says, question, do you think tourism has affected the problem so far? Everyone I know, holidays in Egypt, Turkey, Cyprus, etc., have changed holiday plans to other countries. Will this help in negotiations?
First,
I'm trying to understand where we go with this. I mean, yes, tourism is affected dramatically by destabilization of the region, dramatically so, and rightly so. If you feel unsafe, why would you go on a vacation to a country unless you have a death wish? So yeah, absolutely affected. Israel has seen a huge effect on tourism. We're only now starting to see like the groups coming back, and I have to say, thank God, it's so fun to see groups coming back to this country. It's such a blessing to be able to see people back in this country once more. Please come back to Israel. We're waiting to see you in the country. We're waiting to see you on a tour in this country sometime soon. And yes, global economies suffer when a region is destabilized. So I want to wrap this up and say, look, we've seen a whole lot happen in this region recently. We've seen the Iranians, we've seen the Houthis, we've seen Israel, the US moving, hundreds of thousands of soldiers across the world, across the region. We've seen rockets fired from countries we never expected. And above all, we've seen that somehow, in a miraculous way, God protects the people of Israel. He's done so in the past, He will do so in the future, and He's doing it today actively. We're living in a real miracle. The window just to my right shows a city that should not be standing here the way it does. A city protected by God, miraculously protected against Houthi and Iranian missiles time and time again throughout this war. And I know without a shadow that that's going to be the continuation of our history in this part of the world. So if you feel doubt and if you feel fear and if you feel concern, open up your Bibles, because the truth and the future of what we're looking at exists there. And it is hopeful and it is good, but it was never said to be easy. I think that's all we have for today. If you've lasted this far with us on the show, drop a like and a subscribe and a share. And if you feel inclined and feel inspired and feel motivated, make a small donation or a large donation to keep the wheels spinning here at TBN Israel. We love and we care passionately and deeply about bringing the truth to you around the world. It has been an amazing journey so far, and we plan to continue as long as God wills it. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tomel.
thank you.
Thank you to all the wonderful people that have watched and joined us at home. Thank you to Sam. Thank you to Micha. Is there anyone downstairs in control? No, so just us. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you all on the next live broadcast.
Bye bye.